To India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 109. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
but that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we're talking to Emilee. Emilee is a wedding planner / designer and has been for 12 years and has been doing destination weddings as well for 5 years. Welcome, Emilee.
Hello, thanks for having me. You guys are so professional.
We try.
We just have you fooled.
No, it takes me like 5 times to get my intro that we've done for 2 years, and we've never changed it, and I still can't figure it out.
we read it every time.
Yep.
We have a Word
Oh, yeah.
doc with the outline.
Yep, I'm reading it.
Trade secrets.
Yes.
You heard it here
Well,
first.
It's clearly not a secret anymore because now
Yeah.
it's on the podcast.
We have an outline. We have our interview questions that we ask every guest. And then we have our plugs listed at the end in case we forgot our email address.
Yep.
Okay. That is so real. At almost every single episode, I'm like, yeah, and if you have any questions, you can let us know at... And I can't remember our email ever. I'm like, is it the wedding therapy? Is it wedding therapy? Ugh. So that's you guys really are pros.
And then also we have highlighted who says what line. So Ryan's is in blue and mine's in pink. So we can also tell that's the part I say.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
It's a little ridiculous, but
really
that's how we
well.
stay sane. Yeah.
I love it.
So you should probably tell us a little bit about your podcast, since we're kind of talking that you're also a podcaster.
Yeah. So I started a podcast with my friend. We were just talking about this, and now I'm like, what? When did we do it? It was January 2019. It's called Wedding Therapy Podcast. And it kind of stemmed from us in the industry just seeing patterns over and over and over again in the same issues. And on paper, what I do is guide you through the wedding planning process, and I help you design pretty tablescapes. But in reality, 80% of my meetings are centered around emotion, family drama, mediation, anxiety. And Megan, who's a photographer, she saw all of that kind of stuff play out on the wedding day as well. And so we're like, nobody is talking about how to have a conversation with parents about money. On a checklist, it's plan your wedding budget. Sure, that's easy. No, it isn't. And so that's kind of how it was born. And we talk about uncomfortable things. Like the first episode, we talk about an argument me and Megan got into, and how we had to navigate that. And I think episode 2, we talk about our parents' divorces. So it's really
wow.
Wow.
But we try and make it super real and relevant to anyone. You don't have to be planning a wedding necessarily for you to be able to connect to it. If your sister's getting married, you might be like, oh yeah, I'm seeing a lot of this family dynamic stuff come up, and here's some tools to help navigate it. And then if you're a vendor, we talk to a lot of different vendors about different facets of the jobs and how it can be really taxing on you mentally. So we go into that, just anxiety, stress, setting boundaries, imposter syndrome, that sort of thing on the vendor side. So it's a lot of mental health. It's a lot of analyzing why do we do the things we do, and why when you are crying about pink napkins, how more often than not it has nothing to do with pink napkins.
Really? You think it has to do with something
Yeah.
other than the napkin color? Huh.
Okay, so like for example, you all have heard the term bridezilla, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like everyone has an idea of what a bridezilla is, and that's the thing. Like no one is actually a bridezilla. It's a lot of people have familial dysfunction. A lot of people have
Mhm.
mental illness that's unaddressed. A lot of people just do not know how to communicate well with others. So it's like just kind of breaking down those barriers and being like, okay, you're not a crazy person. You just don't know how to communicate with this type of human. So that's what we talk
Love
about.
that.
It sounds really heavy, but like we're laughing and joking the whole time.
Well, and it sounds almost like a therapy session too, which I think could be really
Totally.
valuable.
Yeah, totally. In fact, not a lot, but we've been so honored to be able to talk to some really, really incredibly intelligent therapists. So they have
Mm.
nothing to do with the wedding industry at all, but Megan and I kind of bring some like common things that we see to the therapist, and or we've spoken to men and women therapists, and they kind of break down like, okay, so what's actually happening here is, and those
Hmm.
are hands down, talk about, I feel like I have a therapy session after every single one of those episodes. So
That's
it's,
awesome.
I find it really interesting. So
Oh, that's so good. I just got
yeah.
married in December, so dodged a bullet with the COVID timing
Oh
for
my
that.
Yeah.
gosh, you really did.
Yeah. But it was funny because I remember I think it was like the day before the wedding, and I've been in and at so many weddings that it's like,
And
feel
coordinated, like,
yeah, and I did coordinating on the side, and so it's just like, okay, I'm around weddings a lot, and so it was funny driving, I think, to something the day before, and I was just like realizing like tomorrow is not going to be the best day of my life. It's going to be great. But like, I also don't want my wedding to be the best day of my life. If that's the
right.
highlight, like, what a terrible life.
Thank you.
Right. It's all downhill from there.
Yeah.
I literally just want to shake the person who came up with that saying, because I'm like, that's lunacy. It's
Yeah.
not the best day of your life. Oh, it's terrible.
There's way too much stress for that to be the best day of your life. Even if it's
Yeah.
positive stress, like best case scenario, it's just like, nope.
Exactly. My wedding was not the best day of my life at all. And I had a great wedding and not at all. Well, congratulations. I don't think I knew that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was a crazy year last year, just like planning a wedding, and I moved back to my hometown and got a new job, and I mean all these things at once. And like my honeymoon, we've talked about this on this podcast, changed like a week before we left for it, and like planned a whole new trip. So we talked about that since that was travel related, but
Yep.
it was
Sure.
crazy.
Oh,
So COVID was
wow.
kind of a breath of fresh air for me because it was like I went into 2020 like I'm gonna save some money and not travel very much and just take it easy.
Oh my God. Every bride listening right now is like,
It's true.
I know. I'm like the last wedding that anybody went to. So
seriously. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's my podcast.
Cool.
But
That's
that's not my
awesome.
job. Weddings is obviously my job, and I do a lot of destinations. So
That's so fun.
kind of ties in perfectly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good.
That's so cool.
So we have a set of 3 questions that we like to ask all of our guests. So the first
Okay.
one is, why do you travel?
Oh my gosh. Why do you not travel? Okay. So I think especially being an American, it's so important to get outside of ourselves. We live in a culture that, whether we realize it or not, is continuously telling us that everything we do is top notch and we're the best and we have everything that anyone could ever want. And so I obviously American. I grew up in Southern California. It doesn't get more California than my childhood. And so I find that travel is so important for your worldview. It opens up the way you think about everything from healthcare to ordering food to tipping people and to like smiling to people as you cross the street. Like, travel has opened up for me so much of just the way I view the world. So I think you would be missing out on so much by not traveling. And I realize I say this coming from an incredibly like high place of privilege because not everybody can travel. But if you can, it's a must. You have to. Besides, like, just it being fun. That's an obvious.
I love that. So I'm curious, what is or are some of the lessons that you feel like Americans need to learn from like experiences like travel?
Well, I think right off the bat, just having a perspective that maybe we don't do everything right or the best. I think a great example of that is the way we drink water, and the way we give water to people. There's other countries that are just doing it so much more intellectually and not short-sighted. Like, they're thinking not just for the next 30 years, for the next 130 years, the next 500 years. So as simple as how you eat and how you drink. Other countries, I think, just do it better. Most Americans are eating probably 2-3 times more than we need to be eating, and 90% of it is processed or GMO or literally fake, just Cheetos, like fake. It's not even real. And I just think the way other cultures treat food, it's not an inconvenience. It's not oh, I just need to quick grab, drive through really quick in between my 30 meetings. It's slow, and you know exactly where it came from, and it's this experience. Like, if you've ever cooked in Italy, like, it's an experience. And I just don't, I mean, there are people here who do that, but I just don't think like socially it's like a cultural thing as much. So like, I think that's a lesson for sure. I think that the way we treat work is so different here in the States than in other countries. And I've just experienced, I have the beautiful opportunity to work with other female-owned small businesses in other countries. And it's just so cool to see how people chase their dreams, but it isn't like, I don't know, what's the saying? It's like rise and grind, or like the hustle mentality that I think is so ingrained in us in the States. It's just a different perspective in other countries. And that doesn't mean that they're lazy and they're not working just as hard. They just prioritize other things, like working 16-hour days doesn't fulfill them. And I think that's an incredible lesson that we can learn. And it's crazy because they're still productive. They're still making money. So it's like, okay, what's missing? I'm exhausted. I need a therapist. I'm alcoholic. I'm not saying me, but I mean, in other countries, it's like they do things a little bit slower. They're not going to be on their email because they're cooking that 3-hour dinner I mentioned earlier. And so I think I've seen people just live fuller, happier lives in other areas. That's really fun to watch. So I will take a step off my soapbox now and put my hat back on and slowly disappear into the crowd.
Hate to break it to you, you are the crowd. So there's nowhere to disappear to.
I love it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it kind of bleeds into the second question too, which is, what type of traveler are you?
Okay, so I feel like there is a preceding question to that. It's, what kind of trip do you want? And then what kind of travel? Because I could be two different travelers. I can be the like super organized, like itinerary, have all the things I want to see and do. And then I can also be the type of traveler that books the all-inclusive. I have a travel agent. I need one for my job. So I could just send her an email and I'm like, these are my dates. I want my butt in the sand and a drink in my hand for 4 days. I don't even care, you know? And it's like I take a plane to a shuttle to the resort and I don't leave the resort. So I feel like I'm too. It just depends on what type of experience I'm looking for. And I see value in both. I think both can be really enjoyable. I know there's certain people that they're like, when I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. I don't want to have a schedule or like have all these things to do. And I totally get that. But I do think like if you're going to be 2 miles from the Vatican and you don't go, like how do you know? So I don't know. I think it has to be like the trip where you see everything, you kind of have to be prepared that you're not going to be necessarily well rested when you come home, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of like the Cabo all-inclusive type thing.
I really appreciate how you're talking about basically what the travel goal is, right? Like what's your purpose in doing the travel? Because I can see even to some extent that with me. And I think I tend to be the structured, I want to see all the things most of the time, but that's because usually when I'm traveling, those are the things that I'm doing. Like those are the goals. I'm there to see the things or to, check it off the list. Cheryl and I've talked about checking things off lists, right? Or any of those sorts of things. But there are definitely other times with different types of trips where, it's like, no, I'm just going so that I'm not here.
So real. I also would say a caveat to that. I don't know if you guys talk about this in your show, but traveling with like one person is very different than traveling with a group of people.
Yeah.
God love them. God love them all. But not everybody just gels perfectly when traveling. And so like when I'm with my husband, like we did, oh my gosh, how many years ago was this? I want to say it was like nope. I know when it was because Trump got elected when we were there. It was 2016.
When was that again?
I know. What am I talking about? I know exactly. So I was in Thailand with my husband in 2016. And that's one of those trips where it was like, okay, the only reason we're flying there is because we want to do all these things. And so with him, it's like, okay, we only have our 2 opinions to work through and we can collaborate. We obviously have to like manage conflict at home every day. So that I'm way more comfortable packing a day full of stuff in a country neither of us know nothing about with just him. But if I have like 5 of my best girlfriends, like we need to go one place and maybe not leave that place because there's just, it's important. It's important. And if you try and pack way too many things and maybe you have a group dynamic where everyone just travels really well together, I just think that's a unicorn situation. The more personalities you get in there, the tougher it is to have 12 things you want to see in one day.
Yep.
So that also plays a huge factor in that as well.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like, or like Ryan's brought up before, like, or just decide we don't all have to spend the whole day together. Like someone could just say, I'm going to go do this thing. Come with me if you want. And that works too. Yeah.
Totally. But like some people can't even say that statement.
Right. That's true.
It's crazy. Or they do, the other person gets super offended and it's like, what do you mean you don't want to spend the whole day? And it's like, whoa, this doesn't have anything to do with anything, So yeah.
We had a guest on a few episodes ago, Alex, and he was talking about one of his, tips was to, make sure you set those expectations with the people you travel with before you're on the trip.
That is probably the single most important advice, I would say, for group travel, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then people get too polite too, because there's the people that like don't want to say their opinion because they don't want to be mean or too needy. But then they're like, well, I guess, or it's just like, or they're like, I'll do anything, but then they're not happy with the thing that they're doing.
They're passive aggressive the whole time.
Yeah.
We know. We've all been there.
And we may have even been that person every once in a while.
I was just going to say, if you're listening right now and you're like, no, I don't think I've ever. It's like, no, that's you.
Yeah,
you were that.
Oh my goodness.
All right. So our last sort of intro question, and we've sort of talked about this, but maybe not. I'm not sure. What is your number one travel tip?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Okay. This is the number one that's in my head right now.
It's all good.
If you have a plan, have the flexibility within yourself to let it go if you need to. I have been in situations where you set expectations, you get really excited about something, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. You miss the bus, you read the paper wrong, you thought it was open and it wasn't open. I mean, classic travel things. You don't read the language, and so you literally got off on the wrong exit or whatever. Have a plan for sure, because you need to, but just whatever you need to do personally ahead of time to be like, it's going to be okay if this doesn't happen. And then inevitably, if it does happen, great. Your expectations are higher than you thought. And then if it doesn't, it hasn't ruined the whole trip. And in that same, if I can do like a semicolon, being open to new possibilities. So, I mean, a great example, not to bring up Thailand like every time, but like we were in Bangkok, and my husband really wanted to go to a CrossFit gym there, and I really did not. So we walked to the place, and I had found a massage parlor like 4 blocks away. And I was like, great, I'm going to get a 2-hour Thai massage, and you can just work out, and we'll meet up after, and then we'll spend the rest of the day in Bangkok. And like, I had done some research. I had found a couple food places. I had kind of had a loose plan for our afternoon. So I have the best massage of my entire trip there. And he ends up making friends with some of the people in the class, and they invite us to hang out with them at the end. So it's not like any plan got necessarily derailed. We didn't like miss a train or miss anything, but I think that I would have missed out on an incredible experience, which ended up being like, we had such an incredible afternoon, if I would have been like, well, we have this itinerary, I really wanted to see this one thing, you know? And I was just kind of like, okay, like this is random and cool, let's do it. And it ended up, I mean, probably the best meal of our entire 14-day trip we had that afternoon, because we were with locals who knew the place and took us to their favorite spot. And it was just such a cool thing that if we hadn't been open-minded, we would have never gotten a chance. So I think like, be willing to be disappointed, and it'll be okay. But also being like, hey, you can throw the plans out the window if this other cool opportunity happens. I think both can exist. So that's my advice.
I love that. I feel like I'm still like learning that and stuff. And yeah, when every minute isn't mapped out, it's really fun to see what happens.
Yeah, it's fun, but it's hard, especially like if you're in events. Like I'm a control freak. I have to be, or I wouldn't be good at my job. And so that makes it's a learned skill for sure. It doesn't come naturally.
That's great. That's a great tip. All right, Emilee, what travel experience are you going to be sharing with us today?
So, destination weddings. I cannot say enough good things about destination weddings. They are hands down my favorite thing on the planet. And right off the bat, I just want to explain, I think a lot of people, when they hear destination weddings, they think Belize, Cabo, Tulum, like it has to be some magical, serene beachside that's like untouched by anything. Yes, that can be the case, but I've done destination in Yosemite. I've done destination in the Central Coast. I've done destination in Palm Springs. So you can have the magic of destination 3 hours from where you live. It's totally feasible. I think a lot of people hear destination, they're like, well, I can't afford a trip to France, you know? And it's like, well, that doesn't, you don't have to have a passport to do destination. I think the key is it has to be at least 3 days. So there's travel and you're staying somewhere, and your guest count is small enough that everyone can stay in the space. That being said, I do a lot of destination weddings in the Cancun area, and we've had 70 guests, and they're all in the same resort.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I somehow do really big destination weddings. It just happened that way. I've done really small too, but I think I've done like 3 that were 70 and over. And so I think you could also have the magic of a destination wedding if you and your partner live in LA and you do your wedding in LA, but your 50 guests all come from New York, or all come like if, in Los Angeles, we're all transplants. So I can't tell you how many of my clients are like, well, we're the only ones who live here. And so we do end up following the same kind of planning process as a destination wedding, because we're getting all the guests staying in the same space. We're planning events for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so I just want to start off by saying, I don't want to exclude people if you feel like, well, I can't afford destination. I can't fly to Venice. I can't fly to Belize. That doesn't necessarily mean you're excluded. You can get really creative and have an adventure. I mean, California is one of the greatest states ever, because you could drive 2 hours and be in the mountains. You could drive 2 hours and be in the desert, you know?
So it sounds like what you're saying is that really destination wedding is a style of wedding as opposed to a specific location or type of location.
Yes, 100%. It's a style, but it's also, there's travel involved. So instead of just sending an invitation and saying, hey, show up at this ballroom at this time, it's, hey, we rented this space at this resort. We're all staying together. We're doing a welcome party on Friday. The wedding's on Saturday. And then we're all going to go see the cenotes on Sunday together. Or we're all going to go rock climbing on Sunday. Or it's you're doing things as a group for the weekend, as opposed to you get 1 8-hour day with 150 people.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Now, that being said, 90% of my destination weddings are far, and most of them are in Mexico. So, I mean, that's the reality. But the ones that I've done that were more local per se, but everyone was together, it still had that magic. It still had that feeling like they all got to experience something new together. And I think that's ultimately what travel is, right? You're going somewhere with someone or by yourself, and you're experiencing something new. So I do a lot in the Tulum, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, just the general Yucatan area. I'm in all the time. And it's so fun. Any type of style, personal style that you could have as a couple, you could execute an event there. The food is just incredible. You're eating local fresh food everywhere you go. The views are insane. And I love the resorts that are big, where to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, they're big enough to where if you're there with your partner as a guest, you could totally do like your own little romantic thing one night and maybe not run into all the wedding party, but you could also easily meet up with people the next morning for breakfast, or just happen to bump into people at one of the breakfast restaurants. You know what I'm saying? So I love the resorts that are big like that, because it gives people the opportunity. It's like, you don't have to do everything 24/7 as a group, but you can plan events where everyone ultimately spends time with people throughout the weekend. So yeah, that's where I am a lot. And then hopefully in 2021, I don't know when this will air. Will it be before 2021? Or after?
I think so.
Okay.
This will air end of November.
Yep.
Ooh, So who knows what the world will look like?
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
Right?
It's like a giant question mark. Okay, well, I'm not going to give away too much, but hopefully sometime in 2021, I'll be partnering with a really cool city in Sweden to do some fun destination stuff out there. So that will be like, we're talking polar, no pun intended, opposite of like tropical equator vibes. I mean, we're talking
cool.
gorgeous little cabins where guests can like watch the northern lights and stuff. So
that is the sort of destination that you could get me excited about. Like, I'm not all that interested in Mexico, but
you don't want a margarita, be in the water all day.
no, I'm no fun. I don't relax like that well.
I love it. Well, that's okay. Not that I don't work for the Board of Tourism for Cancun or anything, but that to me, that's the cool thing about Cancun or Tulum. You could literally do so many cool, adventurous things in Mexico that have nothing to do with being by the ocean doing tequila shots. Mexico City, I've been to Italy. Don't get me wrong. I love the cobblestone streets, but Mexico City, I'm going to butcher this, but San Miguel de Allende is one of the most stunning cities I've ever been to. And I just think that you could literally just eat incredible food, shop, have wine tastings, eat like the best tacos of your life, and be surrounded by so many interesting people, see really cool cathedrals, really cool museums. You could do all of that in Mexico City, and you're nowhere near like a beach vibe, if you will.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a million questions, but one of them that I've been thinking about, Ryan and I were talking off air recently about you coming on. We're talking about destination weddings, and I chose to not do one because I was like, I want all the people to come. But
Sure.
I was like, if I ever wanted a small wedding, I would so do a destination wedding to be like, we're going out of town. Only these people are going to come. So I'm curious, is that the right type of person to plan it then? Is that like a good strategy? Or like, what's the right type of person to choose to do a destination wedding?
I mean, here's the thing. If the thought crosses your mind, like, oh, this could be really fun, then you're the right person for it. Now, the guest count thing, I totally get, but I'm just going to say the average wedding, at least that I do, is about 150 people. And I would argue that most people, now, I know that there's like a lot of people with like Mexican, Latin families where you're easily just inviting cousins and immediate family, and it's 150 people, and you know and love all of them. So that's totally valid. But for most people, there aren't 150 people that you truly want to spend a whole day with. I'm going to be controversial. And I'm going to get even more controversial. The reality is, for most people, you don't get to interact with all 150 of those people on your one wedding day.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So my argument is, if you're going to say, but I care, I want to spend time with my guests, and I really want it to, like, I want everyone to be there, then destination is actually the mode in which you can do that best. Now, some people you say destination wedding and nothing about that sounds fun to them. And so to me, it's like, great, that's not your vibe. But if you're like, man, I love to travel, I think this would be really fun. My whole thing is the people who love you are going to show up. And that's the group that was supposed to be there. And maybe that's why a lot of my weddings end up being 70 to 80 people, because those couples are dope couples and their friends are awesome, you know? And the other thing I would say too, and this is a factor that I'm not like the most sensitive, emotional person, so I have to remind myself, some people have family members that they love and cherish who just can't travel. And so that's obviously something to consider. And, you know, that's why they have honeymoons. So if you love grandma and there's no way grandma can travel, then obviously I would never want to put a message out in the universe that says like, well, screw grandma, do whatever you want. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
I love that you work with brides.
I know. I'm like, let's just be real. Let's be real quick. And you're saying it behind my back. We might as well say it right now. So yeah, and I think to your point, Cheryl, like it's less about is destination right for me? I think most couples can answer that themselves, just based on their first reaction. But more importantly is what destination is right for you. Because Ryan, like you were saying, you're like, that's not fun for me. I don't want to be doing tequila shots at the beach. So you that's where you have to really put your time and energy in, be like, what location makes the most sense for my personality, my partner's personality? I mean, hopefully you and your partner travel well together. I would say that should be a deal breaker because I'm not a marriage counselor, but I definitely act like it. So I would say like, as long as it's totally up the alley of you and your partner, then that's the direction you should go. And the people, like the right group of people are going to follow you.
I love that. That's awesome. So what was your first destination wedding you ever did?
It was in Playa del Carmen, and it was at a Dreams Resort. And it was an old friend from high school. She was younger than me, so we weren't like really close in high school, but we both played soccer, so we knew each other. And our families kind of knew each other. And, you know, with social media, we stayed in touch after college, adulthood. And she reached out to me when she got engaged and was like, I've been following your career. You have to be my wedding planner. Here's the thing. We want a destination wedding. And I was like, I was like, okay. And I basically told her like, okay, so you know I don't do that, right? She's like, yeah. But here's the thing. I think we could do it. Da, da, da. And she lived in Florida. So it's like, it's not like I could be planning her wedding here in LA anyways. And so she had kind of already, like, she had the general location of where she wanted to be. And I was like, I'm super down. I'm like a fake it till you make it kind of person. But I was super honest and open with her in that I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just going to charge her my normal wedding planning fee with the assumption that like, hey, give me grace here because I am going to be trying to figure this out literally as we go. And if I remember correctly, she hired me like a full year out from when they were planning. So we had tons and tons of time. I got connected with a travel agency right away, and they've been the same ones I've worked with ever since.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it was really cool. And oh my gosh, I just want to like shout Lauren out, thank her, hug her, kiss her on the cheek, because I would have never woken up one day and been like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to freaking plan a destination wedding. You know, like it just never would be something that I feasibly, I mean, I believe in myself and I know I can do whatever I put my mind to, but with weddings, Cheryl, you know, it's not like you just say, oh, hey guys, guess what? I do this now. And then people hire you. Like, they're like, okay, let's see what you've done. Like, what are you doing? So she really believed in me, put her faith in me. And I learned, oh my gosh, the learning curve was through the roof. But like I said, me and my husband love to travel. He's a firefighter. So our schedules are so opposite of normal human lives. And so we have this crazy ability to just take off and travel, whereas most people have to adhere more to like weekends or holiday time or vacation time. Yeah. He has 4 days off in a row once a month and 6 days off in a row once a month. So we love to travel. We actually never did a honeymoon really. So I told him, because we got married in the middle of fire academy, which again, not a marriage counselor, but I'm going to say don't do that. So we never really got one. So I just kind of tease him. I'm like, well, now you know, because we didn't do that, you owe me a trip every year. Like, oh, you didn't know that's how that works? Yeah, that's how that translates.
No, I think that's a good exchange. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were actually just talking because our 10-year is in like 6 months or 7
nice.
months. I don't know. Math is hard. So I was telling him he's been working, it's like crazy fire season right now. I was like, hey, for our 10-year, we should go to Paris for like 2 days. And then we should just lie on a beach in Portugal for a week after. What do you say? And he was like, down. So that's generally how travel plans start with us. I'm like, hey, or I'm like, so I bought a Groupon to fill in the blank. Yeah. I'm like, that's what happens when you leave me alone for more than 3 days. I'm like, oh, well, we're going. Yeah.
My favorite thing my husband can say to me is book it. If I'm like, what about this one? He's like, baby, book it. And I'm like, oh.
honestly, there are no better words. Book it. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. I love it.
What's the most romantic thing your husband can say to you?
We should totally make because for our podcast Instagram, we do little quotes for like every other square. I'm like totally gonna make a square that says that, like the 2 most romantic words, and then I'll tag this whenever it comes up. Because I'm like, yes, marriage therapy right there. Husbands,
perfect.
Pay attention.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
I've got 2 questions for you that are totally unrelated. So I wrote them down to make sure I don't forget after I ask the first one. Okay. So the first one goes back to something that you were saying originally. And then the second one's going to, I think, take us forward in a new direction. So first of all, you said that really figuring out whether or not you're a destination wedding person just is really just like, where do you want to go? Do you travel well? Like those sorts of things. But I'm curious, do you see similarities in the types of people that end up doing destination weddings? Or do you just see a huge variety of couples who decide to do destination weddings?
Yeah, I would say there's a huge variety, but the one common denominator is, I can't speak for all women, but a lot of women think about their wedding before they're engaged. Yeah, I've seen the Pinterest boards. I've gotten the inquiries of, okay, so I don't have a ring yet, but so I know it to be true. And I would say if in that headspace, if you always pictured the traditional classic ballroom, all the hoopla wedding, then transitioning to destination might be more challenging for you, if that makes sense. I think a lot of my couples that it was a blip thing where it was like, oh yeah, we should totally do that. Like it wasn't this whole thing they had to labor over. Like none of them felt like they were giving up something by not doing that.
I like that.
So I think there are a lot of couples who, if you presented the idea, their gut reaction would feel like they were giving something up. And then I would say that's probably not for you. If that helps. But like I have couples who have no connection to Mexico whatsoever and they want to get married in Mexico. I'm working with an incredible couple right now. Poor things, they had to postpone because of COVID, and they're getting married in Cuernavaca, and it's like that's where the groom's family is from. That's where the groom's from. So in one way it is a destination, but in another way it's going home. So for them, that's kind of a no-brainer. And that's very different. Most of my couples are here in the States and don't have anything. My Hawaii couple, they got engaged in Ireland. So travel was kind of in them, but they didn't choose Ireland. They chose Hawaii, So I think that's the key is if you feel like it's adding something to the experience, then it's for you. If you feel like you're having to give something up, then that probably wasn't part of your overall vision from day one, whenever that day one happened to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. All right. So then my next question is not directly wedding related, but obviously when you do a destination wedding, you have to go there.
Sure.
Because you're coordinating. Yeah, Cheryl, that's the way it works. So she coordinates the day of, she actually goes to the destination for the wedding.
Could you imagine if I was over Zoom and like someone was just on my computer and I'm like, okay, bridesmaids, you can go now.
Oh, geez, that would be so hard on so many levels.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But I'm curious, when you go, when you go, how often do you get to actually experience the city or the culture or the place beyond just working? Because obviously you're there to do a job, and the particular job that you're doing, granted, I've not done the job. I've been a part of many weddings. It seems pretty all-consuming while you're there. So I can't imagine you'd have a lot of free time during the actual wedding weekend.
No. It is so much work. People do not realize how much work we do. It's insane. So you know what? I'm just totally honest. It depends. I would say most places, 99.9% of the places, I try to build in extra time at the end. Like last year, I had a wedding in Tulum, and I straight up like brought 8 of my friends down after and threw the biggest birthday party in Mexico ever. So, and we like partied for a week after. So, yeah, I would say everywhere I go, I try and build something in, always after, never before.
Yeah, that's smart.
And obviously my clients aren't paying for any of that, but my clients always get me there and set me up lodging. That's like part of my contract. Like Hawaii, I am really good friends with the videographer, and we were both out there. And so when the wedding was over, we stayed a few extra days. We did like this dolphin watching booze cruise thing. I had a girlfriend that lived out there. She drove us over to the North Shore. So we got to do things outside of the actual wedding work. The only times that I can't do that is honestly just calendar stuff. Like I'm going to be in Cuernavaca in December, and I'm like, I need to be back because it's the holidays. I'm really active in my siblings' lives, and often they're at my home. And so, yeah, I would love to just run around Mexico City all December, but it's just not going to work with our schedule this year. So, yeah, I try everywhere, even if it's places I've been before, try and just do something new. But and I usually bring my husband with me, and so if it's a situation where he can't stay, then we won't stay any longer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How fun.
Which is sad, but again, I'm so privileged. I'm so lucky I get to go at all. So when I'm like grumbling, it's like, shut up, you're fine.
Well, but I mean, I'm curious, you said you always do them after, your extra days after, not before, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Because then your event is finally done and you can let down a little bit.
Yeah.
How much of what you do afterwards is that highly structured, like you talked about, and how much is the just sitting on the beach with a margarita and just relaxing because you're exhausted?
Yeah. So the wedding hangover is a real thing. Like your body hurts, your head hurts. Like we're not getting any younger. Literally everything hurts. Your feet. Oh my God. Cheryl, do your feet, like I have to do an Epsom salt soak after every event.
Yeah.
I don't know about
I just had an event on Saturday, not a wedding, but a fundraising event, and had the most massive headache after that, and just was like, any fun I thought I could have tonight, it's just like, no, I just need to deal with this headache first. Yeah.
I usually spend the hour after a wedding like chugging wine in a bathtub, just surrounded by Epsom salt and like essential oils, and I'm like, please heal me. So that's a good question. I think it depends on timing. So like a great example was my big birthday trip that we did. I was so exhausted after that wedding. But we had like a 2-hour shuttle ride from where I was staying at the wedding to the location that all my friends were waiting for me at. And I was able to nap on the way over. And day one, there was like 0 plans. And I had told all my friends this ahead of time. That's part of why I had them fly out before I got there. Cause I was like, get your little party booties going without me so that I don't kill the buzz when I show up. And I just told them, I was like, do not expect me to be a full human the first day. And we kind of that was a longer trip that I had. So I kind of got more fun and we planned more things as the trip went on. Toward like the end, we had booked this like all day sailboat ride thing and we were like doing more fun stuff. So yeah, it depends. Like the Hawaii thing didn't really do anything until like the last day. And then when I'm like Yosemite, Palm Springs, like I feel less pressure because if I wanted to come back on my own, I could, you know? So there's been times where I have done some fun stuff or ate at like a few fun places afterwards. But as I get older, I'm like, I'll see that next time. I'll come back. That's like feasible, you know? I'm like, well, I don't know when I'll be in Tulum next. So I want to do everything I can. So yeah, it all depends, but I definitely start off real low and then get more structured.
Yeah.
That's actually, I think, really good advice for a honeymoon planning or just any trip when you're coming off of a high stress situation is like
100%.
ease into it because you are starting stressed and you need to like let that stress release and like chill out before you're going to have fun on all those plans.
Yes. Best advice I can give in regards to honeymoons is do not leave the night of your wedding, especially if your trip is a long, like if it's more than 4 hours, just wait a day or two. You'll be fine. You can do whatever you need to do wherever you are. You don't need to be in a tropical area. Just relax, recover, hydrate, and then you will enjoy your trip so much more. I cannot tell you how many couples go somewhere insane, like so cool. And I'm like, how was it? And they're like, dude, I slept the first 2 days because I was so exhausted. And then they were only there 5, you know? And so I'm just like, if you, and some people don't care about travel like the way we do, obviously. But if you care about travel and seeing places and getting the experience, stay, like I would say, leave in a month, like adjust back to life, unpack all your crap, and then like go somewhere later.
So I'm curious, what are some unrealistic expectations you've seen of couples who are planning a destination wedding?
Ooh, unrealistic expectations. How much things cost to bring there. A lot of people don't realize how much you end up bringing. And even if you have incredible in-country vendors and you're doing so much stuff in country, which I really, really recommend doing, there's just some things you end up bringing that you can't get there or you have to do ahead of time. And then your dress. And I mean, I had a groom with like an Armani or no, a Tom Ford suit. Like those are things you have to plan for when traveling, and you do not want that in luggage that could maybe get delayed. So you're going to spend, when you're looking at your plane tickets and budgeting that, factor in paying for extra baggage because you're going to need it. That's always like something that surprises people. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I feel like I've been doing this enough where I can like pretty much prepare people for everything. So there isn't anything too crazy.
I mean, that means you're doing your job. So that's good. So what do you prepare them for? Like what types of things are you like, okay, this is what it's going to be like, or?
I think I just always like to remind people that everyone's going to want their attention as soon as they get in country. So as much as they can dump on me, actually, the better. I don't want to show up at the hotel and have to like get information from you. Like you need to have your guest list dialed down. You have to have all your stuff dialed down because as soon as we're in that hotel or at that resort, I'm not going to be the one who's constantly interrupting you with family time. Like I'm not going to do that because this is special and sacred. And so my big thing is you need to offload all of that information to me ahead of time so that I can just put out fires and I can know what it is you want executed without having to bug you every 5 minutes. So, yeah, it does that. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with any event. It's just, you have to tell them like some things may go wrong and that's just the reality of it. But that's why you hire a team that you trust. We will just make it happen behind the scenes. And if you don't trust your vendors, then you can never relax. And then when things go wrong, you're stressed and you feel like you can't fix them. And that's how bridezillas are born.
Yeah, that's so true.
That makes sense.
Okay, so that leads me, I wrote down the word packing because I was like, we're talking about travel and destination weddings. We have to talk about packing. What is that? I mean, outside of like a dress and a suit, what does that even entail with a destination wedding?
Okay, but 2 levels with this. What does it take for the people who are attending the wedding? And then also, what do you have to pack?
Yes.
Okay, so your guests, I don't know. I don't know what they pack, whatever they want. That's irrelevant.
You don't have a packing list that you give them?
Your guests, no. I don't know. If you're in Mexico, bring bathing suits. That's it. So I always say for brides in particular, especially when you're going to a tropical place. So for brides in particular, it's so easy to be like, okay, I need bathing suits. I need my dress. I want a cute outfit for the welcome dinner. I always remind people like pack something cozy and comfy that isn't like beach, that isn't sexy, that isn't wedding related. Like you're gonna want sweats for at least part of the trip. And I think people forget about that because they're so focused on the events. And I always like to tell people, especially for Mexico, I don't want to like spend too much time in one location, but because that's where so many destination weddings happen, it is humid there. So your flowy maxi dress that you think would look great on a beach, but it's kind of heavy and bulky and like long, you're going to die of sweat. So it might sound weird, but like less is more clothing wise. You don't want anything with sleeves. And same for men. Like this is not the time where you necessarily need to wear a full black tux. My heart breaks for men at Mexico weddings. I'm like, you guys are so hot. And so that's the kind of thing where we were talking about earlier, like the ability to let go of stuff. Like if you're choosing to loom on sand to get married, but you like always envisioned the groom wearing a tux and you want 6-inch stilettos, like you pick Tulum for a reason. Lean into the location. Maybe let the guys wear linen. Maybe be barefoot. Maybe don't have the cupcake dress, you know? And if those are things you don't want to get rid of, then I would say then destination is not for you. You don't actually want a destination wedding. You want a destination. You want a honeymoon, you know? And with the sweat thing, I mean, it's gross, but it's real. Like bring extras. Men, if you're there for 4 days, bring 6 shirts. Ladies, bring a few dresses. Like you might want whatever you wore during the day, you might really want to change into at night just for the sheer weather element. And then for me, oh, good Lord, I am like, I'm sure there are people out there who are telling stories to their family. They're like, dude, you will never believe what I saw in the airport today. This chick had 30 boxes. I'm a person in customs that has to saran wrap boxes. It's insanity for me. But this is just one of those things where it's like, when you're doing a destination wedding, hire a wedding planner. Like, the coordinators that come with the hotels don't care about you. They're not going to get your decor there for you. And that's, I mean, maybe they care about you, but they don't really. They care about the hotel. They're going to make sure the hotel is taken care of. A planner who isn't affiliated with a resort is going to do everything you need above and beyond. And they don't care how the venue feels about things. They care about how you feel, and they will make sure that gets done. So a great example of this on 2 occasions, I have traveled into Mexico with, give or take, 180 maracas. Which
What?
sounds counterintuitive that the Los Angeles girl would take maracas into Mexico, but believe it or not, it's like way cheaper to get them in bulk here. I don't know how. This place in Texas, I've used them for years. They probably came from Mexico. The irony is somebody made them in Mexico and some wholesaler in Texas bought them. Then I bought them and then I just brought them back to Mexico. That's essentially what I do. I'm smuggling Mexican crafts back into their country. So I had like 436 by like 48 boxes. And like with my luggage, my husband's luggage, and 2 carry-ons. And mind you, our carry-ons had all of our personal stuff. Our luggage just had wedding stuff. So I've had to do this now twice. And both times they are convinced I have drugs. And I get pulled aside and they open every single box and they're rattling it. I'm like, dude, you're acting like you've never seen a maraca before. And they're like, what's in here? And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me what's inside of a maraca. I don't know. Like dried beans. I don't know. And without fail, they end up breaking at least a couple because they don't believe me. And I'm like, do you really think like heroin packets are going to fall out of here? Like, I would hope that if someone was doing this, they'd be smarter than putting it in the most obvious place. It's a thing that rattles. Like, so anyway, I've been pulled aside. My husband, who speaks better Spanish than me, has like pleaded with people. Like we have been seconds from missing connecting flights because someone's just taking their sweet time, looking through all the stuff. And he's like in Spanish, sir, she's a wedding planner. This is decor. We're going to miss our flight. This is, and they don't care. They don't care at all. Yeah, I would say the bulk of what I'm bringing is actually supplies for welcome bags for guests because that's a common decor element that people do. And it just doesn't make sense to travel with them already assembled, you know?
Yeah.
So like if you're going to buy 40 totes, it makes sense to pack them flat and then you know, the 72 chapsticks, just keep them in the box instead of all this stuff floating around. So without fail, every destination wedding I do, the second we check into the hotel, we just start ripping everything and we're assembling welcome bags. It's kind of a ritual we do. We do like a shot or we make a cocktail. My husband, Andy, has some playlist going and we're like still in airplane clothes and we're just cranking music and we're like assembling welcome bags. And that's kind of our routine. So yeah, that's, I mean, every wedding's different. Every wedding has different things, but I am bringing the bulk of decor and stuff like that. So.
Wow. That's so funny.
Yeah. Super nutty.
Oh, man. So if someone wants to make their wedding planner super happy with their destination wedding, what is a thing either they should do or not do?
Ooh. Like don't buy me anything. I don't need anything. I don't need things. They weren't a destination wedding. But I had a couple like buy me a Coach wristlet. I was like, wow, this is way too expensive. And like, I didn't repeat this part, but I was like, and low key, I'm never going to use this. Like there's so much money. And so, I mean, I'm always a big preacher, like tip your wedding vendors, all of them, tip them. I had a couple tip me and my husband cash and we were heading to the birthday party that I was throwing for myself. And so that was really fun because we didn't have anything on us. We were just going to eat at the resort. And so like having that cash allowed me to get that sailboat thing that I did with my friends for my birthday. And so that was like, so in a way, my couple gifted me the sail cruise, but like my clients are not my friends. Like, they're not the ones I'm like sharing all my likes and dislikes. Like, I am friendly and I'm their friend helping them navigate this world, but we're not talking about me, you know?
Right.
So I don't expect my couples to like get me anything or understand me. I did have a bride give me a massage gift certificate, and
Nice.
that was the best. That was a really good gift. But again, it was a certificate, so I could book whatever service I wanted.
Yeah. That's
Right.
smart.
Yeah. I mean, wine, if you must buy a present, wine is always. But not to do, what did you say? What not to do? I mean, I guess I could have answered that. Yeah. Don't try and buy me things.
Or maybe
Or
don't
any
do welcome bags is what I'm hearing.
No. I love welcome bags. I love welcome bags. I think they're so cool. It's just one of those things because I love to prep ahead of time. And I've just learned it's just one of those things you can't prep ahead of time. And we make it fun. We make it so fun. So no, always do welcome bags. I love it. I think the biggest thing that couples can do to like keep their planner sane is once you make a decision, stick with it and don't look back. It's the people who don't trust their instincts and they keep changing their minds that makes my life really hard and challenging. Yeah. And obviously I do it. I mean, I'm in a service industry. I do whatever they need. But when people like really know themselves and know what they want, it just helps everyone. And I would argue it helps them just as much because they're not putting themselves through the turmoil of second guessing every decision. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. When you talk about knowing themselves, it made me think about the age of the people who are getting married, because in general, the older you are, the better you tend to know yourself just because you've lived with yourself longer, right? You've had more life experiences. Yeah. So I'm curious, do you see couples along the age spectrum as well? Or do you tend to have more often than not a particular age demographic of people who do destination weddings?
Yeah, that's a great point. I wouldn't say there's like a specific, like, oh, between 30 and 37 is destination.
Right.
I don't know if I could pinpoint it that much, but I will say I don't ever have super young couples doing destination.
Well, because the super young couples are going to have like 10 bridesmaids and things like that.
Yeah. And those are things that they won't be able to let go of because they think it's the end all be all. Yeah.
Yes.
And they don't have as much money to spend probably on the wedding, unless it's mom and dad who are paying for it.
All right. Well, I'm glad you brought money up because destination weddings are often the least expensive route for couples.
Really?
You're going to spend, you're going to spend way more money doing a traditional wedding. However, your guests are going to spend more money on destination. So that's the other reason why an older demographic is doing destination, because if you're 20, your friends can't fly to your friends can't fly to Hawaii. And if they can, I mean, you're talk about having a 10-person wedding. That's all that's going to be able to show up. So that's the other reason. I think it's a huge misconception that you have to have this massive budget to do destination. It's actually the other way around. And if you do it right by hiring a planner who knows what they're doing, and if the planner knows what they're doing and they're not in country, they also work really closely with travel agents. And I think a lot of people think you have to have a lot of money to have a travel agent, and it's quite the opposite. You're not paying the travel agent. They're helping you get the deals that you would otherwise never find. And so if you have those kind of people working for you, they will point you in the direction of the places you need to be looking at based on your budget. A lot of resorts will actually give you more discounts the more rooms you book. So you could end up spending even less than the list price based on how many people come. So
that's cool.
I mean, it is not unreasonable to think that you can't do a destination wedding for half the amount that you would in California for like a standard traditional wedding.
Interesting.
Yes. That's a little nugget of wisdom.
That is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely not what I would have thought.
I
Right. I
don't
think
think most people do.
destination, like you're going somewhere farther, that's more expensive. It's going to cost more. Now, do you find that that's true separate from the location, or are places like Mexico where the things in general are a little bit cheaper?
Sure. So that's a great point. I mean, that's for travel anywhere. If you're going to
Right.
travel to London, you're going to be paying 4 times as much as
Right.
you would if you went to Indonesia. Like
Mm-hmm.
we ate like kings in Thailand, and when last time I was in Italy, I lived off of one baguette and a roll of cheese. So if so, like with travel in general,
Yeah.
yes, the place you're going is indicative of how much you're going to spend. But a lot of places have resorts designed for destination areas, and those kind
Mm.
of places are catering to the group. So if it's, say the ceremony site fee is 2000, we'll say the equivalent of 2000 US dollars. A lot of times they'll have a little asterisk. They're like, but if you book 10 rooms or more, we waive that fee. Because think
Oh,
about it from
wow.
a hotel perspective, they're going to make way more money on bookings than
Yeah.
your one-off,
Yeah.
rental.
Mhm.
And then depending on the resort, again, if you have 20 rooms or more, they'll give you a free open bar for cocktail hour, or they'll do 20% off your dinner, your reception dinner. So
Wow.
if you have 75 guests at an all-inclusive resort, you're going to walk away almost paying nothing to have the wedding there. You're just
Hmm.
going to pay for your florals, your photographer, and me. And the best part is a lot of places, depending on how many rooms you book, they'll throw in a free room. Like I would say half of my destination weddings I've done, like my lodging ended up getting comped. So they didn't have
Wow.
to pay for it. So, I mean, you could say you could have a wedding for under $5,000 in an incredibly nice resort on the
That's
ocean.
cool.
And
That's
that's,
very cool.
you would be hard pressed to be able to do that anywhere
Yeah.
here in California.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
You've talked about the travel agent several
yes.
times, which I'm super fascinated by. How much of the travel arrangements does the travel agent coordinate? Like, is it just the couple? Is it everybody? Is it whoever opts in? Is it all of the
Everybody.
above?
All of
Like,
the above. Everybody. So, so now, actually, I should back up. I don't know how all travel agents work. So
sure.
and I'm not one. So I could be totally speaking out of turn. But mine, generally, it starts even before that. She's like my go-to just to even help a venue. So we kind of do an intake with the couple at the beginning. So she has her intake and I do mine. So I'm asking like, what are your priorities? What do you care the most about? All of those things. I'm trying to get a sense for who they are at their core. But then on the travel side, we're like, all right, let's right off the bat, how many guests are we expecting? Do you want kids or not? Because that's actually like most
Mhm.
resorts are either adults only or family, and they're two
Mm.
very different vibes. So we have to
Mm.
get that right out of the way at the beginning. And then look and feel like, are you looking for something that's super modern, like really high end luxury? Or are you looking like, do you want to be in little cabanas right on the ocean? That's a little bit more rustic. So getting a sense of that. Do you want all inclusive or not? Another really important thing is how far away from the airport do you think your guests are willing to go? I mean, that's a
Mm.
huge factor. I've had couples who are like, "Oh no, we're fine. They can travel into the jungle 2 hours because we want this adventure experience." And I've had other couples who are like, I just don't know. I think that'll be really hard for our family. We need to find somewhere that's like a 30-minute ride from the hotel just
Mm.
so that it's super easy. So we have to get all of those things figured out first. And because I mean, I can Google as well as the next person, but I don't want to go off of a website. I want to go off of someone who has physically eaten at this place, who can say, this place is bomb or this place is
Mm.
mediocre, or this place has an incredible water slide on the premises. So if you have a bunch of kids and that's their thing, you know, that kind of thing. So she helps compile like 15 venues based on all of that stuff that we talk about that she thinks could be a good fit. She does a little write-up, the pros and cons for everyone, the general price range. And then if she has access to it, what kind of deals and promotions are currently going on, like we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I walk through all of those options with the client. And sometimes we go back and forth and do that multiple times. Other times, one in that first list makes sense. And so from there, we start fine tuning, talking about, okay, what kind of rooms are we going to want? How many nights are you guys going to want to stay? And then from there, she handles all of the travel for all the guests. So
Wow.
I am not fielding any emails about someone who booked their flight and they clicked the wrong link, or they don't know how to find the shuttle link, or like she's handling flights, she's handling the room reservations. And I mean, she did this even for my little birthday party. We had one link and her email, and I gave it to all my friends. And I was like, she's the support. Here's the link to book. Ask her if you have any questions. And she helped all of my friends were traveling with like a baby too. And she helped with like all of the
Wow.
logistics of that. Yeah. So I'm kind of the liaison. I can kind of field initial questions, but there's no way I'm helping people book flights. I just have no idea. Yeah. And more often than not, you have people coming from all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a given that they're all booking a flight out of LA, you know. So she's
love that.
worth her weight in gold. I highly, 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 highly recommend.
Yeah, I think so. We've had one travel advisor on, and I've used a travel agent a handful of times, and it's so interesting because I think there is that mindset of like, well, we don't need them because there's the internet. But like, the internet is kind of also the problem because businesses can say whatever they want about themselves, you know,
Yep.
and then so then it's like really hard to tell. And I think also like there's way too many choices, so people feel paralyzed by choice as well.
And hello, ads. You might not even be seeing all the places. You're only seeing the ones who paid to be on the front page, which
Yeah.
is so unfair. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like if you don't know a lot about travel, just it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know, is this the right type of flight to do? Or just, I don't know. There's so many people that it's like, if people have that experience and the professionals filter towards things, I think that can help so much. Yeah. And just the legwork.
So helpful. The legwork. And like for me, I love knowing exactly what I'm going to expect. So like her name is Marie Sam. She has even told me like before I've gone places, she's like, oh my gosh, you need to make sure the day you check in and make a reservation for the Asian restaurant because it's the best and it always gets booked up really fast. Like that kind of stuff. How do you find that information out, you know? And then also, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've checked into places and they're like, oh, you're here under Right Travel Agency. We've actually upgraded your room. Or like I've gotten to my room and she has given me a voucher, like $50 off a massage for myself. That like
nice.
She gets these perks working with these places.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there's no way just me, Emilee Sutherland, I would get that on my own. So
that's so good.
Good far outweighs any. I mean, there's zero negatives.
That's so good. Well, Emilee, thank you so much for sharing with us about destination weddings. It was fascinating to hear about. Someday I'll get into them myself. It'll be great.
I love it. You should.
So normally we like to ask our guests if there's just one thing on their trip they could have taken us to, what would it be and why? But we aren't talking about a trip. But if there is, how about this?
Okay.
So based on the title of our show, Take Me With You. If you could take Ryan and I to be guests at just one of the destinations weddings that you've coordinated, what would it be and why?
That's a great retooling of that question, Cheryl.
I know, you totally curveball me too. Okay. I would take you to Hacienda Tamozan at the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula It is magical. It's not beach. It's in the middle of the jungle for Ryan. But there is an incredible pool on site. So when it gets
Ooh,
hot and
fun.
humid, you can jump in the pool. The way this place works is you book out, it's actually an original hacienda. It has this incredible little mini museum area. So you can see info about the original family that owned it. And like, I think 6 or 7 US presidents have stayed there.
Wow.
Yep. And the property, the grounds are just, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. It definitely has that like Mexico City feel. There's like bright mustard yellow walls with white trim, and then this deep red and cobblestone floors. And the wedding I did there was a few years ago, and the couple, so the bride is American, the groom is British, but they live in Australia. And so so talk about what's your demographic for destination. I mean, for them, they could literally pick any place on the map and it would be destination for everybody
Yeah.
and their family.
Yep.
So they're like, oh, well, they're either flying to Australia, they're flying to England, or hell, they're flying somewhere totally random. So I don't know if you've ever partied with Australians before, but it's on another level. I won't get into the details, but it is a fun time. Like, I've never met so many interesting people, and the crowd almost like matched the space. Eclectic, interesting, and from all over the world. And it was just such a beautiful day. And so, or what am I saying? Beautiful weekend. And then the whole caravan of friends hopped in a bus and they invited us to come with them down to Tulum. And I mean, I don't know if either of you have seen Almost Famous. Husband
Yeah, long time ago.
Okay, so there's a scene, if any of the listeners love that movie, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a scene where after a really like dramatic filled night, the band is on the tour bus and they all start singing Tiny Dancer, the Elton John classic. And I'm on this like bus that kind of felt like a tour bus, and we're driving to the ruins. And all of a sudden a ukulele gets brought out by somebody, and like, granted, I didn't know any of these people before like 48 hours prior, except the bride and groom. And all of a sudden, then my husband's a drummer. He starts doing something, and all of us are singing Tiny Dancer on the way down. It was just like a really, really cool experience. It was just like, you know, I felt like we were just gypsies going through the country. So that would definitely be a wedding that I think it would blow your mind. Actually.
So
it's on my website, the photos, and there's
cool.
like incredible, my friend Ryan. So he did the video for that wedding, and he's
cool.
uber talented, and it's an epic video. So if you want to feel like you were there, you can go to my blog, which I'm sure we'll put somewhere. And the couple's name is Ida and Peter. And you can just type their names in and you can see all the images from their wedding day and feel like you were there, because it was one of the most magical weddings I've ever done.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
And Emilee, what is your next trip?
Well, I'm going to be in Cuernavaca, Mexico, the first week of December. So that's really, really exciting. It's actually going to be at another hacienda, Hacienda Cortez, and similar vibe, but totally different in the same way, if that makes any sense. I've been working with them for about a year now. They're such an incredible venue. I've just come to love and adore all the people who work there. And we have a great team of local vendors who we'll be working with. And then there's some stuff brewing for 2021. But again, I don't want to like say anything official, but there's something with Sweden. Something with Sweden is happening in the destination world. And then the other thing I can kind of hint drop at is my travel agent, Marie Sam, and I, we actually are just beginning to work on a little Cabo / Puerto Vallarta venue tour that we're going to do for prospective couples because
Ooh.
Fun.
I think Ryan, you kind of touched on it earlier. You're like, well, you have to go there. So a lot
Yeah.
of times they don't actually have the means to visit the venue before the wedding. Some people do,
Yeah.
and that's great. And I never tell people, like, if you can't do that, that doesn't mean you can't do it. Like, a lot of my couples do not see their spaces before the wedding.
Yeah.
But it's a little nerve-wracking, right? Like, Cheryl,
Sure.
you're like, well, anyone can have a website. Like, so her and I got to talking, and she knows the wedding industry, obviously, but she's not a planner. And so we were like, wouldn't it be really cool if we kind of join forces and we do a little tour hop where we're physically at like 5 of what we think could be potentially like the best spots. And we just like are live streaming, taking photos. Like, I could be walking through, I'm like, guys, this would be a perfect ceremony space. It's 4 p.m. right now. So this is where the light is. And like, this is how much I'm sweating right now. So like, real life, like these are real life questions. And so we're in the midst of putting that together for 2021. So I think that will be an invaluable resource for couples who, like, we've talked so much about this hour, is like, are we a destination couple? I don't know. Like, I think watched a bunch of videos like that, you're either going to immediately feel this sense of like, we must be there, or, ooh, it feels like a lot, like you're going to feel one way or the other. Instead of just scrolling, I think like scrolling, looking at pictures, it's really hard to see yourself there. Because if the photo was done by a really talented photographer, like, of course it's going to look epic.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But watching me, like, zero filter, like, hello, adult acne, like what my hair looks like. And I'm just like, all right, guys, this is it. This is the location. There's nothing fancy. I'm not a photographer. Like, I think you'll get a more real reaction if it's for you or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Cool. And do you have any travel questions for us?
I mean, okay, forgive me if you covered this a million times, but I'm so curious how this whole thing started. Like, why were you like, we must talk about travel?
I don't know if we have had that question.
No, we haven't. Actually, yeah, you're the first guest to ask that. Maybe it's because you're a podcaster, though, so you're like thinking about that. Yeah. So I had a podcast before this one. It also went for 2 years, and it was called Old Maids, and it was about being single, where we got on our soapbox about being single in our early 30s. And it was really fun. It ended because we both got engaged and got married. So.
Well, okay, but you're leaving
Old Maids.
But you're leaving out a key part. The way that both of you ended up meeting your partners was because for the podcast, not for anything other than the podcast, because you just thought it would be funny. You signed up on dating apps.
And then we both met our spouses through that. Yeah.
Shut up. Oh my God.
Yeah, I thought online dating was like the dumbest thing ever, but I was like, it'll give me content, so why not? And then, yeah, both of us met our husbands because of that.
You do realize you're the modern day Carrie Bradshaw, right? Like,
yeah, Carrie Bradshaw.
Or she was writing articles about dating.
Yes, yeah.
In New York City.
Well, most of our podcast is about like how single we were, not like about all the dates we were going on. It was about like our incredible level of singleness. And then it was like, I don't know, it'd be funny to like talk about the types of guys we see on dating apps. Like there was a picture of a guy like without a shirt on in bed with a knife in his mouth, like pictures like that. And so
Pixel head.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This guy who like put squares over all of his photos had kids in them. I think they were like his niece and nephew. And he put like black squares over the kids' heads. I think for like privacy purposes, but it just
looks serial killer.
Yes, it was so creepy. And one of them, he was like burying the child in a pile of leaves. I think to be like a cute like, oh look, and it looked so creepy. It was crazy.
No, if anyone has seen one episode of SVU, they're like, no, no, pass.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love that story so
It
much.
was fun. But then, so anyway, and then, so Ryan was a guest on Old Maids a couple times. And,
Because I'm single, not because I'm an old maid.
yeah, yes,
Just for the record.
yeah.
Sure,
Ryan
sure,
is an old maid though, but
But I am the male equivalent of that,
Yes.
which I think we even tried to figure out a name for.
Bachelor, I think, was like the only, we're like,
Oh,
there's not like
Well, I think I said hermit,
hermit.
but that was too extreme.
yeah,
Oh,
he's an introvert though, so Ryan's kind of a
Mr.
hermit.
Heckles, Mr. Heckles from Friends.
Oh yes, yes. But then I guested on a wedding podcast actually, and this wedding podcast that doesn't exist anymore called Wedding Confessionals. It was so fun, and they had people like write in all these like wedding stories and stuff. You would enjoy it. But I was a guest on it, and then somehow travel came up, and that host was like, "Oh, well, you should do a travel podcast where you like plan trips for people," because I mentioned that I love to plan trips for people. And and then I was telling Ryan that he was like, "Oh, I had fun on Old Maids," and I was like, "Oh yeah, she said that I should like do a travel podcast," and I was like, "And you should do it with me." And then in that moment, we're just like, "Yeah, we need to do this." But we realized if we plan trips for people every week, like that would be
That's
exhausting.
a full-time job.
Yes, yes. Yeah, or like, oh, then we should just like go into that business as opposed
Yeah,
to
you should
doing a podcast.
you should be making
Yeah.
a commission off of
Yeah. But so we morphed it into just like hearing travel stories from people, because it's like you have that friend go on the trip and you see their photos and then you run into them and you're like, "Oh, tell me about your trip," and you hear like a minute about their trip. But this way you get like 30 minutes to an hour about someone's trip. And so I feel like I've learned about like so much more about the world because of this
Oh, yeah.
podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But then every once in a while we'll have on a guest and we'll help them plan a trip. And so
Yes. And it's super fun.
like Ryan's dad and stepmom came on recently, and she's never been to Europe, and it's been a long time. And so they want to go to all these cities that between Ryan and I think we've been to all
because
but
they're
one.
going to a destination wedding.
Yes. And then they decided to like tack on like a 5-week trip. And so we
Yeah.
were just like, here's what you're doing in Barcelona. Here's what you're doing in London. And so it is fun when we get to plan trips for people. We have a good
I
time.
love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Is there any guest whose story about their travel has been so compelling that it has made you like book the same thing, or at least go to the same thing or place?
Well, I think there's a lot of places that are now on my list because of guests.
Yeah.
But then
True, I can't travel right now.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I mean, we've been around before COVID, so
Yeah.
there
That's
was
true.
one funny one we had on a guest like a year and a half ago, and for her Wish You Were Here, she talked about this place in Portland that she loved that's like an old Catholic church, but then has this like beautiful gardens and grounds, and she was like, it's so peaceful there. And so I told my at the time fiance about it, and I was like, oh, we should go there sometime. And he just like totally blew it off, and I was like, why is he not interested in that place? And it's because he had already planned a trip to Portland for me for my birthday and already was planning on going there, and so she kind of ruined it she didn't even know that, but she like shared it about it on the podcast. So that was like magical because I heard about it, and then like a couple weeks later I was there, which was really cool.
That's so cool. That
Yeah.
just goes to show how well he knows you.
I know, right?
I love
that.
I love that.
Ryan,
What
have
about
you
you,
gone
Ryan?
anywhere?
I'm trying to think. Kind of like what you said, Cheryl, I have a bunch of things added to my list of places that I want to go and things I want to see and do. But since we started the podcast, I haven't done a lot of independent travel. So I'm a high school teacher. And so actually a lot of the travel that I've done has been with students. I take student groups and things like that, which is awesome, but also is a very different type of travel. And so I think not this last summer, because nobody went anywhere this last summer, but the summer before that, I did a big trip with 2 of my friends. We did Ireland for 2 weeks, which was super cool. But I don't think we had very many people talk about Ireland on our podcast prior to that. I think we maybe heard 1 or 2, maybe like Wish You Were Here's or something like that. I think we had.
Yeah.
So I haven't really had a lot of opportunity to do a lot of those big things yet. but
Yeah, well,
it'll
okay.
come.
Did you
Next
go
year.
on the funicular in LA?
I did. I went
I
on
told
the
you
whatever
about it.
Angel's Flight
Yes.
that you mentioned. Yes,
So
I did.
that was from this podcast.
That's true. That's true.
It doesn't have to be far.
Well, I just wasn't counting it because Cheryl shared it.
Well, we live in Seattle, so it was further for us. So
Oh, that is far. I'm like talking
Yeah.
to you like you're down the street for me.
it's all good.
I'm like, that's really easy. What are you talking about? Oh, fun. I love this. This is most of the podcasts I listen to are like about psychology and like managing life or straight true crime. So this is like so light.
Yeah, this isn't really either of those.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I love it. It's very refreshing, very light.
So that's great. Well, we're going to transition into the last segment now called Wish You Were Here. During this section, each of the three of us is going to highlight a travel attraction from the various places that we've been. We can think of it kind of like a little postcard snapshot of a really cool thing or a place or an event. And so it was really cool. And we thought, hey, this is cool. Wish you were here. That sort of a thing. So, Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here this week?
I would like to talk about the Glen Erie Castle in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Ryan, have you been there? You're nodding a lot.
I have, and I'm going to have to tell you a story about it once you finish.
Okay. So maybe you have more right to talk about it than I have because I've never been inside.
Wait a minute. What?
Truth comes out. Truth comes out.
I wish I went inside, but I was with my sister when she lived there, and I went on a hike with her that was like nearby the castle, and so we looked at it first and then went on the hike. But they offer tours, and I mean, the outside is gorgeous, and anytime you can go to a castle that's in the U.S. is very exciting and kind of a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah,
for real. I love that.
It's really beautiful. It was built in let's see what Wikipedia has to say. 1871 by the founder of Colorado Springs, maybe. Or maybe he commissioned it.
Mr. Colorado Springs himself.
Yeah. Yep.
Sure.
And it's gorgeous and in such like a beautiful wooded area, and there's brick happening, which I'm a big fan of. So check it out, but go on the inside unlike I did.
Yeah. So I have been inside and it is pretty cool. I was in high school at the time, so it was quite a while ago and I don't remember all of the details. What I do remember though was that me and several friends decided, well, if it's a castle, it must have secret passages.
Sure.
So we went around looking for secret passages in the castle. And I swear there was some tour or something at one point, and we asked the woman and she like opened up this like side panel. And I think there was like a fire hose or something in it. And I was like, that doesn't count. And so we went around like checking doors, and there was a big giant fireplace, like one that you can actually like walk in. It's so big. And there were little light fixtures on the side, and it's possible that I may have turned one and broken it, except I don't think it actually broke, but I think I was afraid I broke it, right? Because like, well, maybe if it turns and then the fireplace turns around, and of course 100%. It didn't.
That's totally what I would think.
Oh yeah, exactly. And it's also possible, Cheryl, that the one time that Ben and I had a fight was when we were in the castle, because he thought, and there was a lot more to it than just this, but basically I wanted to go and look for more secret passages, and he thought we shouldn't. We should do something else. And like I said, there was a lot more to it than just that. That sounds very, very surface. But the one actual like fight argument that we had, that was it. So yes, I definitely remember Glen Erie Castle.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Emilee, what about you? What would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
Okay, so this might not be part of the rules because it's not really wedding related, but
it doesn't need to be wedding related.
Okay, this is hands down best thing I've ever done, ever.
I think that's the rule. The rule is that's what it should be. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you gotta make the trek to Chiang Mai, Thailand, It's not an easy flight. I'm just gonna tell you right now. But nothing a little Jack and Coke can't help with. And once you're there, you need to spend the afternoon, the whole afternoon at the Elephant Jungle Sanctuary in Chiang Mai now, or Jungle Elephant Sanctuary, Elephant Jungle, one of those. Type in those 3 words, you'll find the place. I don't know if you guys know a lot about elephants in Thailand, but it's a really devastating situation over there, the way people have been treating elephants for the past, several hundred years. And so this one nonprofit, we did a lot of research on them ahead of time, and they're basically just a safe haven for elephants who came out of abusive business endeavors. And just one of the most magical things. So you get there, you learn all the history, how elephants got started in Thailand and all of the harm and abuse, and then how the sanctuary started. So there's a lot of education part of it, which I found really interesting. And then you literally spend the whole day taking care of elephants. And I laughed, I cried, it was so magical. We happened to be there when they had 2 little babies, which are bigger than Dobermans, but they were just little guys. Yeah. And the moms it was just so sweet to see. I find them to be such beautiful creatures. And so getting to feed them and hang out with them. And then we go on this little trek down to the riverbed and we bathe them. And you're in the water with this animal that's like, I don't know, 60 tons.
Wow.
And yeah, life-changing. It's not even that expensive. You just have to make a reservation ahead of time. I did so many things in Thailand, and that's the one that you hold on to that forever. So I don't know where else you would get to do that. Just chill in a riverbed with 6 elephants.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so
definitely bucket list item that you got to do.
That's so cool.
And I should say, they've expanded. So if you are not going to Chiang Mai, but you're in Bangkok or Phuket or one of the other areas, I believe they have now locations everywhere, and it's all owned and operated by the same thing. So,
wow.
Yeah, if someone's traveling and they weren't planning on going to Chiang Mai, I guess you don't have to add that on. If you can find them other parts. That's just where I was. So
nice.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ryan, how about you?
Well, I feel like mine's not that exciting now, but
Ryan, I didn't even actually go in the castle, so you're good.
Yeah, but it was still a castle. You still did a castle. Although, Cheryl, you will be proud. I'm going to do a restaurant.
Yay, food!
Yep. So this is something that's local to this area where I live, up here in the Seattle area. It's actually in Bellevue, and it's called Equus, Equues. And it's sort of connected to I don't remember if it's the Hyatt or whatever the hotel is that's over there. It's around the Bellevue Square, Lincoln Square, Bellevue Collection is what they call all the little malls right around there, in case anyone is familiar with that. But specifically, Equus does a really, really great brunch. Ooh. And I'm a sucker for brunch. And so I've done that a number of times, and they have an omelet bar, and they've got all sorts of things you can do. You can get, you can, of course, there's a buffet that you can do and just, do whatever you want, but it's not cheap buffet food. It's really good quality,
nice
buffet. Yeah. Like a nice brunch buffet. And then you can also order brunch stuff as well. They've got some amazing flavored waffles that are they have all sorts of different flavors. You can get a sampler platter of all the different kinds of waffles that they have, and their menu changes over time. So it's not always the same from time to time, but it's a really, really great place to do brunch. So if you're interested in brunch and supporting some local restaurants, since, things are closed and have been closed and harder to do some of that, that would be a place that I would definitely recommend. Equis in Bellevue.
I have to go there. That sounds so good.
Yes, you do. Have you not been, Cheryl?
I've never even heard of it.
Oh,
you knew a restaurant I didn't know, Ryan. I'm pretty proud of you right now.
Look at that. I just won the podcast.
Oh yeah, you won. You won for sure. No, wait. Do they have bottomless mimosas?
I don't know. Sorry, I don't drink, so I don't know.
He doesn't know the ins and outs there.
Oh, good for you, Ryan. Good for you. You're definitely...
It's not anything about trying to be good. It's that I just don't like the way alcohol tastes.
Sad. What a sad thing.
No, it really isn't, because it's way cheaper to not buy alcohol.
No, you're right. My closet alcoholism is coming out right now because I'm like devastated for you, but you're clearly fine. You're fine.
No, I feel that too, because of how much I enjoy alcohol.
I literally was like, okay, I really want to make a Manhattan, but do I wait till after because I don't want the ice, clinging? But then I was like, I wonder what that says about me. I'm like, well, it is 7. I don't think they'll judge me. I went through a whole thing.
And then I just my wine here. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, man, I should have made it. And telepathically, I'm like, I wonder if my husband will just make one for me when I'm done. It'll just be there.
That's the way marriage works, right?
Oh yeah, you never have to ask for what you want. You just read each other's minds.
Yep.
And it's so cool.
Yeah. Like magic, almost.
The magic part is when you say, "Can you make me this?" And then they say yes, and you're like, "Oh, that's cool. We take turns."
I love it. Well, you guys are a treat. This is fun.
Thanks for being on, Emilee. We loved having you. Plug all your stuff, your business, socials, all those things.
Okay. All right. It's really easy because I don't have personal. It's all my business. So literally on every platform, it's just at Tasteful Tatters. So Facebook at Tasteful Tatters, Instagram at Tasteful Tatters, the blog, tastefultatters.com. And for those who don't hear it right, I get a lot of, is it tatas? I'm like, no, tatters. Tasteful, spelled the way you would say tasteful, and then tatters, Tatters. So one word. That's how you can find me on everything. Even email, tastefultatters@gmail. So really easy. Nice. And I'll hopefully be posting about the new travel stuff around January. So
sweet.
That will be fun to share. It'll probably be the only thing you see on all my platforms at that time. Assuming we're allowed to go places.
Well, that's there really is that, but we can be hopeful and optimistic, right?
Yes, I'm holding out.
Awesome. Well, while y'all are going to follow all of Emilee's socials, we'd love it for you to follow ours as well. We are at TMWY Podcast. That's TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
You can also email us at timwaypodcast@gmail.com. Send us suggestions of guests we should have on, topics we should cover, and maybe, oh gosh, I'm having a hard time. Tell us your favorite thing that you like to drink while you listen to our podcast.
That's a great one. I might.
Yep. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699, or if that's easier to remember, 406-POD-TIMWY. Please remember to rate and review our podcast to let other people know what you think. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our new episodes, and share about this episode on social media so other people can learn more about destination weddings.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
Emilee, it was awesome having you on this week. I learned so much that I didn't know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so fun. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. That's all we've got for this week. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Yay.
Trying to get a sailboat, chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe. Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a lot of love. All the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want them to be